from the crypt.
Hello, boys and ghouls. Welcome to episode 55 of Dads from the Crypt, a Tales from the Crypt podcast. My name is Jason. I'm joined by Mondo.
Hello.
And Jody.
Hello.
Switching up on you guys.
Yeah, I wasn't ready for it.
You messed me up because I planned on answering in German and then I just completely blanked.
What am I doing here?
Ach, du Liebe.
Yeah.
There we go.
All right. And tonight we have a very special guest. We've taken to calling him our Uncle Al, but you probably know him as
You weird
Al Katz.
Uncle Al. Oh, God.
Our Funkle Al.
You can call me Al, right? Okay. Hey, hello, everybody.
Hi, welcome. It's a pleasure to have you here. You know, normally I wouldn't have someone that worked on the show to actually review the show, but tonight we're doing something special. We're talking about the 72 Tales from the Crypt movie. So you're fair game, and you've been a big contributor to the podcast. So we thought we could repay you and have you on and have some fun.
And I'm looking forward to providing as much fun as I can.
Excellent. So, but just to get a little current, you've wrapped up the first season of your podcast, the How Not to Make a Movie, Making Bordello of Blood. And
we did, and I've got an announcement that I can make tonight on your podcast about something that's the second season of the How Not to Make a Movie podcast is coming up. It'll start in the first week or so in September.
Wow.
But I can tell you that the very first episode, well, let me go back a step. The second season will be the same. The franchise is the same. It's movies going bad when film craft turns to crap. But it won't just be about Bordello of Blood anymore, thank goodness. It'll be about all the other movies, and between Gil Adler will be co-hosting the show with me, the podcast with me, and we will reach out to everybody we know, all the filmmakers between Gil and I who we know, and we will invite them in to tell their sob stories.
That's awesome. I love the fact this is spinning off into its own little world. Yes.
The first episode
of
season 2 will be a little unusual. I mean, here and there, of course, we'll end up talking about Tales from the Crypt a lot. On the very first episode, we're going to have a conversation that has never happened in the world before. The 4 people responsible for really creating and I'd say creating the Crypt Keeper. We'll have a conversation together for the first time ever. That would be Kevin Yeager, who designed the physical Crypt Keeper, John Kassir, who of course was the voice, Gil, who directed a lot of the Crypt Keeper and also produced all the Crypt Keeper segments that we did, and me. I put words into the guy's mouth, and the 4 of us have never talked about the process of creating that franchise ever.
That's
awesome. That's so cool.
We're going to do that actually next Tuesday night is when we're going to record it. And then the following week, hopefully that's when we'll drop episode 1. And we're lining up a bunch of really terrific guests for the second season. Gil is reaching down deep into his phone book to pull out some good guests for us. And I think we're going to have a terrific second season, but the first episode, I think, will be especially special. And now you all know.
That's
so
awesome.
Cool.
Yeah.
I love it.
I'm giddy.
For listeners that haven't listened to season 1 yet, just you can pause our podcast and start listening to that podcast because it's fantastic. Like, everyone should be listening to it.
If you're not rolling a tear by the end of the episode, by the end of that season, you don't have a heart. Because it's such it goes some places you really don't expect and just is so heartfelt. How has the reception been for that first season?
It's been terrific, and I've slowly been working on the process of getting it out there to more and more people, and certainly exposing it. Your audience helped tremendously just to get us up off the ground and get a little wind under our sails. I apologize for the noise out on the street.
Oh, it's okay.
Anyway, the response has been uniformly terrific. and especially amongst other filmmakers. That's been really rewarding that other people really they recognized the honesty and the truth.
Yeah, I listened to your spot with Mick Garrison. I'm sure that was helpful, and he seems like a great guy all around.
Well, Mick is always lovely, and it always makes me laugh that someone so as gentle and genteel as Mick is a horror guy.
Yeah.
But actually, most horror guys are. I apologize. Most horror people are actually the loveliest people. When I started doing Tales from the Crypt, one of the things that I would tell people, and because it occurred to me, it was a great gig because I got to kill so many people and get away with it. It was awfully therapeutic.
Yeah, and we love hearing your weekly stories. That's been a great contribution to the podcast.
Oh, well, thank you. There are all these things gathering dust in the nether regions of my brain, so might as well spend them here.
Speaking of which, we can address one thing that came up on Twitter today. It was someone, one of our friends, Jonathan, posted a picture of you and Gil at the ending of Demon Knight as the final cut producers. And it's funny because I rewatched Demon Knight last time before I interviewed Ernest Dickerson. And for the first time, since actually I can put your face to it, and then I recognize Gil. It's a very quick shot. But I told oh my God, they put them in there. I never realized that before.
Yeah.
You want to talk about that shot for a minute? Is there anything behind that?
We did that in Westwood. I think that was, it might have been the very last thing that we did in the whole movie. We shot it in Westwood at one of the big movie theaters in Westwood. I haven't been to Westwood in 1,000 years. Are those movie theaters even there anymore? They used to premiere movies all the time in Westwood, all the time. And it was at one of those movie theaters that had a great forecourt. And so it was the obvious place to give that kind of Grauman's feel to it. I don't remember much about that night, other than the fact that when Gil and I sat in our trailer together all night, just waiting for our shot, and when it came, we went on. I do remember that Joel was there, and now that I think of it, Joel had to be on the set that night, and Joel rode us all night. He rode us all bloody night, and now that I remember it, he was setting us up for Bordello of Blood, the son of a bitch.
All right. Well, let's we just have a quick announcement before we dive into our episode. In case you haven't heard, we now have a Patreon account, and you can find it by looking for Dads from the Crypt on Patreon. It's a great way to support the podcast, and we're going to be putting up some extra content soon. I want to thank our first round of people who signed up, including our fun aunt, our fonts, Whitney, our friend Aussie Andy from Australia, and Tommy from BJ Slack. So thank you for your support.
No, nobody else signed up.
And someone named Armando. I'm not quite sure.
I just wanted to shout out from Jason. That's it. I'm canceling after this month.
There you go. Oh yeah, I wasn't sure if you just signed up for the thank you, then was going to quit on me or what.
Just fishing for a compliment.
Yeah.
Hey man.
I don't hand those out like candy, so you gotta earn it. All right, tonight we are talking about Tales from the Crypt, the movie, which came out on March 9th, 1972. And this is a collection of stories. So we're going to do this a little bit different format. We're going to start off with the kind of the wraparound stuff, and then we're going to kind of go through each segment individually and kind of discuss and review and do our comic comparison for each segment. So Jody, you've got the unenviable task of synopsizing each one of these.
All right,
so
I've had practice.
You've been training for this.
Yeah. Okay. So I can synopsize the wraparound super easy. First off, there's I actually looked at my timer to see how long it was. 7 minutes of people wandering around in a crypt for the first part of this movie. It's just walking around in like a dark tomb. And then we meet this mysterious figure who is the Crypt Keeper. Unlike the Crypt Keeper we're very used to, full of puns and jokes, this is a very serious British man. And this is a British production, and it is extremely British all the way through. Just so British.
That is exactly the right word. It is
Just British.
very British.
Yeah.
I'd even say English. It's more. It's particularly British. It's in English.
Yeah.
I'm
Right.
married to an English person, so
There you go. We should have had your wife on.
what?
We should have had your wife on.
Well, she's been in a couple. She was in a couple of episodes.
Mm-hmm.
All I'm going to say is I'd be more terrified to meet this Crypt Keeper than I would be to meet the modern.
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah. No, this Crypt Keeper is like going to the principal's office. Like when you show up and this Crypt Keeper starts telling you stories, you listen because you're afraid to not.
This Crypt Keeper is very judgy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I noticed in the credits when it had the Crypt Keeper's credit, it is Sir whatever his name is. So this
Ralph
man was
Richardson.
knighted.
Yeah.
And one thing to point out is I always thought this was a Hammer production, but it's Amicus.
Yeah. Amicus did all the British anthologies. That was kind of their whole thing. We watched one called Monster Party just recently. That was another Amicus anthology. They're all pretty fun. Like I do like them. They're very British, just like this one.
Monster Party was that on Last Drive-In?
Yeah, it was on Last Drive-In.
Yeah, that's if you haven't watched that, that's for anybody out there. That's a blast.
Yeah. There's an animated striptease scene where someone pulls off their skin and they're a dancing skeleton. I mean, come on. But anyway, so the British Crypt Keeper starts telling them stories that he says are what might happen, how you might die if you do the things that you're thinking about doing. There's a twist later on, but that's how it starts. And then we jump into stories just right off the bat. Each person in there are 4 people. And each of them gets their own story, or 5 people, sorry. And each person gets their own story. And that's where we get into the classic Tales from the Crypt stories.
Okay,
So that's your wrap.
So Jody starts off with number 1.
All right. Number 1 is a very classic Tales from the Crypt story, All Through the House. It was in the first season of the TV show. And super simple story. A woman kills her husband. And she tries to hide the body and then finds out that there's a homicidal maniac in the area who is on the loose and dressed as Santa Claus. This woman sees the killer outside her house, but she can't call the police because if she calls the police, they're going to find out she murdered her husband. So instead, she tries to make it look like he did it. But her young daughter, Carol, and let's go ahead and just put out a blanket spoiler warning for all these stories. They're very short, so we can't do it without spoilers.
It's 50 years old.
It is a 50 year, 1972.
Just hit 50.
Yep. But anyway, so her daughter Carol still believes in Santa Claus and sees Santa Claus outside and lets him in. And then we end this segment with Santa Claus attacking the mom and trying to strangle her. A very simple story. Classic Tales from the Crypt.
Can I mention she had the coolest telephone I've ever seen?
Oh my God, yes.
with the rotary dial on the bottom. I thought that was super neat. And also the way Santa choked her, like, yeah, come on.
There's something
criticizing the choking technique.
Hold on. Going back to the phone for a second though, there's something I miss about dramatically dialing a number in that way that you just don't get with a cell phone.
No, yeah, because everything's already saved on your phone. You just hit one button. That like slow, like.
Well, obviously, somebody needs to create an app that will do that on your phone. There's a small fortune to be made right here.
It reminds me of Mitch Hedberg joke when he said, if you get in a fight with your girlfriend while you're camping, you can't like leave the tent and slam the flap. Doesn't have the same effect.
Yeah, hanging up on a cell phone just doesn't have the same effect as like, slamming out a phone on the receiver.
And if you're smart, you just put your phone in airplane mode. So that way they just think the call failed.
Yeah.
Walk away and enjoy your day.
All right. So Mondo, why don't you start us off? What did you think of this segment?
I liked it. I'm a sucker for Killer Santa Claus. I think that this hits at a visceral level. I mean, enough to where when Silent Night, Deadly Night came out, Roger Ebert just slammed it for bringing the Killer Santa Claus aesthetic. So it's simple to the point. I think it works pretty much every time. But I do like how, and I said it about the original episode, how they bring in just that twist where she killed her husband, because that's kind of nowadays we're always trying to. When modern filmmakers have to always account for the cell phone. Why does a cell phone not work? And this one they had to account for why doesn't she just call the cops? And that was cool. And plus with the kid letting the Santa Claus in, for some reasons, even nice Santa Clauses at the mall are still kind of creepy.
Yeah,
like it's and the guy had that really really great look on his face. I forgot the actor's name. And then Joan Collins is just wonderful. So a very very big highlight of this episode for me. I'll leave it at that. Big fan.
Al, what'd you think? Al, what'd you think?
Yeah, my problem with this segment was the same problem I have with all the segments. Now they truncated everything, understood, and you nailed it up front. You said it's really really British. It's very English. The thing about Tales from the Crypt, about the source material, and it's funny, all the stories it's a morality tale, and all of these are very definitely morality tales. And Ralph Richardson is the Crypt Keeper. He's Mr. Moral, and certainly everyone's going to pay the price for being an immoral dick in whatever way that they were. But and there's the irony. The irony is all there, but it's absolutely devoid of fun. And the really remarkable thing is, Bill Gaines and Al Feldstein and oh gosh, who was the other original guys? A lot of them, they were Jewish, and they were all from Brooklyn. I mean, even Jack DeBartolo, who I don't know if Jack DeBartolo is Jewish, but they were all from Brooklyn. They were all from really the same neighborhood in Brooklyn. And so there's a Brooklyn Jewish sensibility to Tales from the Crypt. Its sense of irony it really is very intensely Jewish. And when they did Tales from the Crypt in England, they didn't take that across the pond with them. And what's remarkable is that every one of those stories, when we did it, when the American versions, it above all, it had that incredible sense of wicked fun, that anarchic coloring outside the lines. We're not playing by the rules. And that is something that the English film at no point captures. At no point. Everyone's getting punished because they were bad. And hey, they're all going to hell anyway. There's spoiler, there's that shot towards the end where
we're beyond spoilers.
Green screen hell.
Oh boy, it's
yeah.
It takes it right off the bat. There can be no fun here. There's just no possibility for fun.
Well,
this is not a playful movie at all.
No. So right off the bat, they took source material that was wicked fun and they stripped all the fun out of it, and they just left the wicked.
Right, and that's one thing. I mean, we're just gonna talk about it off the bat, I guess. It's how do you approach this on a film critique level? Are you trying to take it on its own terms, or are you trying to take it into the sensibilities with all the other baggage that we know? Because if it is a British film made by British people, made to be with British sensibilities, is it succeeding on that level, or are we trying to interpret it through?
But they took a piece of American source material.
I know.
Yeah,
and it's not unlike Americans taking Shakespeare and screwing it up.
Well, I mean, you could look like Baz Luhrmann, but still,
yeah.
I think the fun and actually another word I might use is sleaze, for lack of a better term. They kind of cleaned it up a little bit.
This is PG. This is PG Tales from the Crypt, very much.
I remember I watched this for the first. I bought it was a 2-pack. You got this and Vault of Horror at the same time. You bought the DVD 20 years ago or whatever.
Another Amicus anthology.
Yeah, and that's the first time that I watched it, and I hated it because I wanted Tales from the Crypt. I didn't want. I'd never seen it before, and back then it wasn't as prominent as now. So I kind of had to walk into this with a different lens, knowing that it was going to be much darker. And yeah, but I agree with you. Does not. If I had to pick, everybody out there thinks, what should I start watching? Like, this is not. I actually really did enjoy the movie overall, but I don't love it as much as I love Tales from the Crypt.
No, it's it's
Well,
another interpretation of the source material, which doesn't make it any better or worse. It's just that interpretation.
It's well directed. Freddie Francis was a good director. There's some lovely shots. There's some good directorial work. However, you mentioned that it was 7 minutes of people just walking through. There is so much bloody shoe leather in this movie. Mind-boggling. Oh, good Lord. The shoe leather, the people walking, the cars just driving. Oh, if Gil and I had final cut on this, the movie would be 10 minutes.
But for this segment specifically, just so we can keep it, segmented.
The whole format. I've ruined everything.
No, not at all. No, it was kind of the elephant in the room. So it's either we talk about now or later. But I would say that I like Joan Collins better in this role than the woman in the TV show. I'm blanking on her name. I know it was Robert Zemeckis' wife. Mary Ellen. Yeah, I like Joan.
It was Bob's wife at the time.
Bob's wife. Yeah, I kind of like Joan Collins better in this role. But Larry Drake, man,
yeah, that 100%. That's all the difference in the world.
This guy it's just a guy in a Santa Claus outfit looking in the window.
Yeah, he's just kind of a dirty guy in a Santa costume. Larry Drake looked insane, absolutely insane and terrifying.
Yeah, exactly. But it's that same, that understated English quality. We don't want Santa to look too crazy.
Right.
And speaking of Larry
Drake, I think he's crazy.
Imagine Dr. Giggles or Darkman without Larry Drake. And
impossible.
God, he's so good.
Yeah. So I mean, again, I'll give this one points for the Joan Collins character. I thought she was really good.
Great.
And also, again, she was still kicking as far compared to most of the people in this movie. She was in American Horror Story recently. She's still doing philanthropy work.
I do love the set pieces too. I kind of love that 70s Art Deco kind of house they had. I did kind of really dig that.
Yeah, because I mean, it's not just British; it's like upper crust British. And that house very much felt like this is a fancy house for nice, polite, rich people. And I do enjoy seeing that invaded by a dirty Santa Claus. So that's nice. The blood is very, very red.
Oh, yeah.
Not a lot of blood in this movie, but boy, it is that paint blood.
The giallo red blood.
I kind of love it.
It made me think immediately of the question that our Canadian special effects team asked when we were doing Bordello of Blood. How do you make blood?
Yeah. I was thinking that.
Question to get asked.
You need to get a time machine, call Todd Masters, and have them tell them how to make.
Yeah. And so, one of the things that we talked to Todd about was, help these guys just make some blood. Oh, that blood looked awful. It's
paint. It's just straight up paint.
But she's trying to get out of that white fur rug. I was like,
yes. I was like,
what are you doing?
Wait.
Just throw that rug out.
Obviously, this is like years and years before CSI, where, sweetie, you're wasting your time trying to clean the blood out of the rug. Good God.
She didn't plan that one out very well.
There was one decent stunt scene in this, because when she threw her husband into the basement, he did a full out somersault down the stairs. I was like, that's honestly kind of impressive for a 50-something plus British man to go somersaulting down the stairs.
That stuntman was just paralyzed the rest of his life.
Looked awful. Looked like a terrible thing to have to do.
He just left him down there.
Yeah, he's still there.
I did like how they had the Christmas music track just kind of going throughout the entire segment nonstop. Obviously it wasn't one shot or anything, but the music was, and just kind of almost like a drone of Christmas music as you can see her dread level going up. So
Freddie's a really good director. So there were some great directorial touches. There were.
Mm-hmm.
One other thing I noticed in this one, and this probably the morality place of it, is in the show, I think the husband was kind of a bastard a little bit, so
Yeah.
that when you killed him, he's like, okay, you kind of sympathize with her. He seemed like a nice guy in this one. Like he's
Right.
putting together Christmas presents and like, oh, sweetie, I made
Well,
you this present. And then she just murders him for money. Like she's just the the bad guys in this one are bad. Like there's no question. There's no back and forth of maybe it was justified or whatever. No, they're just bad. They're bad for bad sake.
They've
think the-
truncated everything here.
Yeah.
There's no the characters. Oh, okay. So even when characters come back from the dead, it's like, oh, is that how it works here? Okay, all right.
if there's
That's the rules in this episode. Okay,
if
whatever.
there's an overarching something to take from this, it's that if you're married, don't have a life insurance policy because then your wife won't murder you on Christmas Eve.
Do
Or
it
don't
on
have-
the down low.
Don't have fire pokers.
Yeah.
All right, Jody, you reread the comic for this one, right?
Yeah, I did. Vault of Horror number 75, the February-March 1954 issue. And as far as a comparison, this is just a straight up like this is the comic brought to life, just without the playfulness. Like that, all the plot points are exactly the same. Probably change some names around like, as they tend to do, but yeah, no, this is a very faithful adaptation of this particular story. So if you want to see without anything added to it, just like a straight adaptation of a Tales from the Crypt story, this is pretty close to it. It's about as close as you're going to get. I remember in the TV show there was some like extra plot points and things like that because you got to pad out that 25 minutes sometimes.
Hey, let me tell you.
Well, yeah, but they added like some set pieces where she's stuck in the closet and he's like climbing up. To add that
Right, and there was
suspense.
the well outside,
well,
like
yeah.
throwing the husband down the well and all this stuff. This is the comic though. It's just straight. They can make it as short or as long as they need to as part of this anthology. It was actually this was one of the shorter segments, I think.
Yeah,
But yeah,
I was
it's pretty faithful.
I was shocked when it ended. I was like, wait, what?
It felt like 5 minutes. Like
Yeah.
it happened so fast.
All right. Anything else before we move on to the next one? All right, let's move on, Jody.
All right. The next one is Reflection of Death. And between all these segments, we go back to the Crypt Keeper, and the people kind of like, "What are you doing?" And then he tells another story. That happens between every segment.
Well, they're like, what did I do to deserve this? And he's like,
Right.
let me tell you.
Let me tell you about you piece of shit.
I did really love the Crypt set piece, so I thought it was a really
Yeah.
Oh, it's cool.
With
Yeah.
that chair with like the skull like
Yeah.
in the background. That's cool.
I wish I had a basement because I want to recreate that. No
Kramer style.
Yes.
All right. So, Reflection of Death. A man named Carl kisses his kids and his wife goodnight and then leaves to abandon his family to run off with his secretary, Susan. They drive off together. They're involved in a car wreck. Terrible car wreck rolls down the hill. He wakes up having been thrown from the car and tries to get home. And everyone who sees him, like, reacts with horror and runs away. And he goes home and his wife reacts the same way. Then he goes to see Susan. And her house is all different than the last time he saw it. She can't see him. She's blind from the accident. And she says the accident happened 2 years ago and Carl died in it. And Carl looks and sees his reflection. He's a rotted corpse, screams in horror, and then wakes up in the car right before the accident. And then that accident happens again. So I don't know if this is like a time loop kind of situation where it just goes over and over. That's what I was thinking. But abandons his family, car accident, living corpse. Repeat.
Yeah. This was I think probably my least favorite episode. I liked the concept of someone kind of like the first person and people being afraid of you and that, but that only lasted like a minute. And then the rest of it, you're like, I'm not sympathizing for this guy at all. I want him to burn.
Yeah.
The piece
Unsympathetic characters is kind of a theme with this movie.
The thing I really liked about it is, and I'm with you, Jason. I think it's probably my least favorite of all the episodes, of all the segments. Is I do love the reveal though when he's looking at the photos and he sees himself in the glass table, or as a mirror. Like I absolutely love that reveal because I one thing I miss that modern movies don't do as much is make you wait for the payoff. And I did think it was cool that you're constantly thinking, what does this guy look like? And then when you finally get the payoff, it's a pretty cool makeup.
No, I like that moment, but it wasn't enough
Yeah.
to justify the rest of it.
100% agree. 100% agree. That's just the one piece that I really did enjoy.
Al?
You know, I have the same problem with all of them. It's who are these people?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The you know, the writer in me, you know, looks at this writer and I always want more. So at the end of the day, yeah, the thing I said about the first segment is the same as through really all of them. They're so English. They miss all the fun, and because it takes it so literally.
Yeah, it's very reserved.
Yeah.
Not diving into it. He's not like, oh, I'm so happy to be free, running off with my secretary. He's like, oh no, I'm just going for a drive with my secretary. Just whatever.
Yeah. No,
He's so like
even-
blasé.
It's
Even there, right before they run off, they're talking and like, well, I guess we're going to run off together. Oh, yep. You know, we all had to make sacrifices.
That's
how
we
affairs
all
always
have to
start.
make sacrifices. What was?
That's how affairs work, right? People just are like, well, we're changing our arrangement now. Okay, I agree. Let's go. And they get in the car.
This whole movie reminds me of an old joke that actually a German friend of mine, my company's German, a German friend told me. He goes, how many Germans does it take to screw in a light bulb?
9.
One. Us Germans are efficient and we do not appreciate humor. and the more Al was bringing up how like they play it really straight and narrow. That's all I could think of is they're really kind of eliminating that fun cheese piece to it. And now you guys are making me hate this movie more than I thought I did. So
Again, if this is your jam, if you like reserved British, you know, drama with a little bit of horror tinge, then yeah, this is for you.
I think I like this as an amicus anthology.
Yes,
I don't like it as a Tales from the Crypt story, you know.
You know, yes. If it was not Tales from the Crypt, it would be a little bit.
Yeah,
it's not a bad movie.
It's a fine anthology.
It's well made, but it's, if you look at the source material, it's not a good adaptation,
right?
Because it misses something so essential to what makes the material work, what makes it transcendent, what makes it work over the course of all this time.
Yeah, and thinking
It
about
doesn't work as well. Their version doesn't stand up.
Yeah, think of anthologies because they have to reset so often. It can be very jarring, and this makes it even like worse, where they don't give you any setup. So I think to quote fix this, you would have had to probably sacrifice one episode,
you know,
flesh out each one.
Well, yes, you know, it's a very classic structure. It's like Boccaccio's The Decameron, which is, you know, it takes place during the Black Death, and a bunch of young people hole up in a farmhouse or a castle, and they tell each other stories. You know, so it's a very classic form in which to tell, you know, anthological story and stories. But hey, man, even the Canterbury Tales was way more fun than this.
Yeah.
Well, I think
you had the
part of
Miller's
it,
Tale, at least in the Canterbury Tales.
I think part of it, I know they don't have the fun. They also don't have a lot of character in any of these stories because we jump straight. This is a very plot driven, like all the stories are just plot, and we don't get a lot of. I said earlier something about like stuff that was added to the stories because we're going from a comic book, right? And the comic book didn't have a lot of character. They just jumped right into the story. But to make a satisfying thing to watch, you have to connect with some character. These characters we're already in the story. The guy kisses his kids goodbye and he gets in the car. Like that's it. Like that is our entire introduction to this character as he's leaving his family. That's all we ever know about him, honestly, is he's leaving his family and he gets in a car wreck.
When we meet these people at the beginning, they're no one to us.
Mm-hmm.
And so hearing their stories is it's not opening any doors or windows that we're going to go through down the road, they're all going to get tossed anyway. They're all apparently they're all fodder to begin with.
Yeah.
So they, what is the writer's name? The writer is Milton Subotsky, and Subotsky, you know, he wrote a few things. He was not an untalented guy, but he. What I think people do with horror often is they undervalue, and they don't invest in character as much as they could or should. And I think there's a part of horror that unfortunately lives in even in the minds of creative people. We don't give it its true worth. We get lazy, and we assume that to scare people or to set up a scare, you do this and you do that. Well, there's really the nature of what is scary is very, it's down into the nuts and bolts and the nitty gritty of who we are as human beings.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the scariest movies I've ever seen are movies where I care about the characters. And so when something bad is happening to them, I'm afraid for them. And then I'm afraid for myself because I'm afraid for them.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We put ourselves in their place, and it's our empathy that really is the thing that the more empathy we have, the more terrifying it is.
Yeah. And in this episode, the only person you have empathy for would really be his family, who they never really address in the entire episode. So who cares?
Yeah.
One thing we haven't talked about is obviously they had to get permission from EC Comics to use these stories. I'm curious if they put stipulations, or if they had any input, or did they just rent out or license out the property? So I'd be obviously we can't really find out now, but I'd be curious to know what that arrangement was.
I think the two, I'm jumping the gun a little bit. The two stories that I like the most out of this are the ones that have the most character, and we haven't gotten to either of them yet. But I think that's what's missing from a lot of these.
I'm going to assume that Bill Gaines made the same kind of deal with these people that he made with us. Bill was wonderful to work with, and I didn't work for him specifically, but in a sense,
By proxy.
You know, the way that Bill thought, he wasn't the creative guy. He created the environment where all the creative people could just do whatever they wanted, and that was his genius. He allowed, well, he trusted his collaborators to do what they were going to do, and that's pretty much. There's a great story about him. You know, they would go on an office vacation every year. He would take everyone on a trip, and the first place they ever went, and they went to Haiti. And they went to Haiti because they had one subscriber.
That's so cool.
And so the whole point was they were going to go, and the subscriber didn't know they were coming. And they went to the subscriber's house, and they threw a party for the subscriber at the subscriber's house. And he was rather bewildered, but okay. And someone else subscribed while they were there. They thought they were just these crazy Americans, so they subscribed. And Bill Gaines considered the whole trip an incredible success because they doubled their subscription numbers in Haiti.
Well, if we have one listener in Haiti, then we'll make a trip.
Well, Jason, we at least have one listener in Australia. Just saying.
Yeah,
well, hey, you get two, you'll double it. But this
too many snakes.
This was the environment that he created, and so the deal that Bill Gaines had with us was we had to maintain the title.
Yeah,
and we had to use the title, and everything else we could go to town.
I'd be interested to hear what his reaction to this movie was. Whether he was happy, he's like, okay, it is what it is, or
I bet he was thrilled to pieces. I bet he did not care one iota.
Well, the way you're describing him is he'd be just kind of excited to see a different interpretation of his work. I think is what
I'm sure he was. What a pleasure to, having grown up in the 60s. I read those. I got those comic books. I had them. I loved early Mad and Mad magazine.
Say I love Mad Magazine.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
loved Bill Gaines, and
Mhm.
one of I was so lucky to get to do Tales from the Crypt and then meet Bill Gaines.
Oh yeah.
And the lunch I had with Bill Gaines in Joel's trailer on the set of Lethal Weapon 2 was such a thrill, because when do you get to meet not just your idols, but really someone who, I mean, a lot of my sensibility flowed out of what Bill Gaines helped create. That helped create my creative sensibility. And here you are, you get to meet the guy who put this into your head.
That's awesome.
So awesome.
So how would Bill Gaines have reacted to this movie? I bet Bill Gaines was happy as can be with it.
There you go.
That would have been my guess.
All right. Mondo, you read the comic for this one?
Yes.
Can you
I
give
think
us
the
a comparison?
Yeah, I think the comic is way better than the episode, especially when you consider when the comic came out and what they were doing. Like they have it's the narrator is talking to you in the first person the entire comic, which gives it like this frantic sensibility, which a lot of exclamation points and bold words, which if you know in comics, bold words are important. Really well done. But in the comic, the difference is they get rid of the whole backstory of the family, and the main character is actually riding with a friend of his in a car. And they get on a head-on collision, and everything else kind of works out the same, except for he goes back to his old house, is condemned, and then he meets his friend who's in the car with, and the friend is blind, just like the episode, and then he sees himself in the mirror. He wakes up, and then once again he relives the car accident. But the end is a little bit different, and maybe it's a little bit different, but at the end it's the narrator telling you, this is all real, this really happened, this is what you have to deal with, and good luck.
It's almost like those drunk driving PSAs.
Yeah, but it was kind of cool, especially considering when it came out. And I don't have the date of when this one came out. I'm sorry, I'm not as prepared as Jody is.
That's April, May 1951.
Yeah, to have that kind of first person,
Mhm.
that first person narrative with the narrator blurbs who's telling you what you're experiencing, kind of a really, really cool idea. And the artwork in this I absolutely love. The zombie face they draw for him is actually kind of horrifying, even in 2022.
Who did the artwork in the comic? Do you remember?
I see Jody looking that up. So
I'm looking. I'll get there. Let's see. Reflection of Death. Let me find that one for you.
While Jody's getting it, the Crypt Keeper wraparound they always do in these comics, I absolutely love, because it says, "That's it. Like being a corpse. Well, you might as well get used to it because it's bound to happen." Like, what a morbid way to end the story. And be like, "Well, you're gonna die someday, kids. So enjoy."
Okay, so this is something I've never seen before. Script by Bill Gaines and Al Feldstein. Pencils and art also by Al Feldstein. I didn't know he did art.
Oh wow.
This was all him, man. Like I've never seen his name under the art side of things. So that's super cool.
I'll put the image here in the chat because I absolutely love the drawing of the zombie face, the face.
Oh yeah, that's great.
It won't paste.
Some great podcasting here. Let's
great radio here, guys. But I'll send you guys the images it's fantastic.
Let's move on to Poetic Justice, Jody.
All right. So I went ahead and told you at the beginning that I had two that I liked the best. This is one of the ones I like the best. All right. So we have a man named Arthur, played by Peter Cushing, who is a trash man who has a bunch of dogs and enjoys entertaining the neighborhood kids in his home. He's just a nice guy all around. And he has a neighbor named James who is an absolute dick and hates him for no good reason, calls him dirty, and he and his father plot to do horrible things to this man. First, he gets all of his dogs taken away, and then he makes him lose his job as a trash man. And then he spreads rumors that the man is a pedophile so that the kids don't hang out with him anymore. And then finally, on Valentine's Day, they get the whole town to send him a whole bunch of mean Valentine's Day cards with mean poems in them. Just dickish behavior all the way around. I messaged Jason and Mondo as I was watching this one. I said, this may be the most punchable character in all Tales from the Crypt media. I want to hit this man. He is a terrible, terrible man.
This reminds you of somebody posted during the holidays about why the Grinch was so angry. And it said, you'd be angry too if someone was singing about what a piece of shit you were 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
Everyone is just so mean to this poor guy.
And he is a nice guy.
This guy makes Roach from Demon Knight seem nice.
Yeah. Yeah. This guy, Peter Cushing's character, is such a nice guy. He does not deserve any of this. He has done nothing to anybody, but these two people are just complete pieces of crap, and they keep doing mean things to him for no reason.
Well,
and eventually it causes him to commit suicide. He hangs himself, and they find him. They also find out that his house that they say is just a filthy hovel. It's not dirty at all. It's a clean little nice house. He just happens to be a trash man. That is his job. Respect for the trash men of the world. I wouldn't want to do that job. Thankful that some people do.
But anyway, they make good money. They have retirement.
It's a good job. It's a good union job, guys. But there's nothing wrong with being a trash man.
It's usually municipal jobs. So yeah, it's got great
That's
bennies,
absolutely. But anyway, a year later on the next Valentine's Day, James is throwing away some extra Valentines that he has. And then we see in the graveyard, Arthur returns from the dead. He bursts out of the grave and shambles his way to James. And his father finds him the next morning with a little poem written to him. It says, "Happy Valentine's Day. You were mean and cruel right from the start. Now you really have no," and he unwraps the rest of the card, and there is his son James, still beating heart, wrapped up in the paper. I was waiting for something bad to happen to this guy. I'm glad it did. I'm glad that we finally got a little gore in this movie. Very little, but James deserved something terrible to happen to him.
Yeah, I like this one. The Peter Cushing blew my mind because I only know him from Star Wars and from playing the Dr. Victor Frankenstein, and then playing Sherlock Holmes. I think he played Dracula, and he's a very dignified man. But here he's playing this really kindly, genteel older man. I'm just like, wow, I've never seen that performance from Peter Cushing before.
You want me to blow your mind even more? This is IMDb trivia, so take it for what it's worth. But according to the trivia there, Peter Cushing is said to act as himself in this movie because his wife had recently died. And I didn't get into that in the synopsis, but he's a widower. He uses a Ouija board to talk to her. This is apparently Peter Cushing being Peter Cushing. This is what he's like in real life. Wow. He wanted to do this movie so much he took a lower fee than his normal Hammer Peter Cushing fee because he just really liked it. So next time you see serious Peter Cushing, I think he's actually a nice dude behind the scenes.
Imagine that. Horror actors are nice people.
Horror people are nice people. We've already said that. Exactly. And it is true. It is very true.
Al, what do you think of this episode?
Again, it's the, what is the son's deal?
Yeah.
Why you got a bug up your ass for the guy across the street? What's he ever done to you? What you were one of the kids across the street and then give you candy one day? What's your problem? Now, the real the character who's really the more problematic is the dad.
Yeah.
Who sits there smoking his pipe while the son's being the biggest dick on the planet. Never does it occur to the dad to go, okay, look, this is not necessary. Stop this. Or if you really want to fuck with the guy, let's do it this way. Just sitting there, it's.
I mean, he obviously did not raise his son right. So.
Yeah. So
but it's he's not joining into Glee. He's just so indifferent the entire time. It's comical.
But it's the indifference is. Do you not see what your son is doing? Make a choice here. He's very English about it. Well, none of my concern.
Right.
That's happening across the street, mind you. That's not where I live. You're on this side of the street, everything's just fine.
I mean, it sounds like a certain political party in the U.S. right now too. So
Boy, well, you know that dad in this episode, he votes conservative.
oh, if it was
Sure.
if this movie came out today, we'd be questioning where he was on January 6th. It'd be-
um but I did, yeah, I liked some of the I like the performance in this one, and that ending was a good, nice little gory punch compared to the other ones.
Yeah, I think why I like this one better is it actually got me to feel something about some of the characters. And what I felt
Oh,
was
yeah.
pure hatred for James. I just wanted something bad to happen to James because Peter Cushing was such a nice, there was no reason to do this to him.
well,
And so I connected with the character in my hatred of that character, for the first
Well,
time in any of these.
so
Also sympathy for the Pierre Cushing character too.
Sure. Yeah, no, I hated to see bad things happen to him. There
It
was
would
no
have been
reason.
nice for the Peter Cushing character to push back a little bit before he was dead.
Sure.
Yeah.
Did he not recognize why all this terrible stuff was happening? Was it just, oh well, they took my dogs, oh well, the kids are gone? Oh, I mean, at some point, dude, show a little backbone, please. But yeah, it's probably the most relatable piece in the whole lot, simply because he's such a nice, sweet old man. You hate to see what's coming to him. It's another one of those things where where they suddenly, oh well, in this episode, people can rise from the dead.
Right.
Right.
We only get the
We-
only leading up to that we get is he does some stuff with a Ouija board and like some automatic writing stuff.
Yeah,
There's one shot where it's kind of panning over his room, and you see a couple books about the occult, and like I think one of them is like what happens when you die or something along those lines. So that's like
yeah.
dropping something.
That's all well and good,
Yeah.
guys.
I know. I'm just saying.
and you know what?
Yeah, but as far as character motivation, hey, okay, all right.
And I get the idea of like the creepy old guy in town. Not even creepy, the old guy in town makes toys, he gives the children. And maybe at first, like as a parent, I'd be like,
But why are you hanging out with this old man? I
Yeah.
get it.
But as a parent, I'd probably go have a conversation with this guy and realize, oh, he's a toy maker and whatever, and he enjoys doing this. It reminds him of his dead wife, and then we'd have a conversation, and we'd probably have a beer together, and life would be okay. Like, and that's what I really I felt really bad for him, because just it's a whole like the misunderstood monster. He's not a monster, obviously, but the misunderstood. Everyone sees him as a monster, but he's just a misunderstood old man.
Well, see, you referred to the two rich guys as what party they might have voted for. They even call the old man a pedophile. I mean, that's kind of the whole thing, right?
It's on brand.
Nothing
It's
changes.
on brand. Yeah,
Let me call this guy a pedophile while I'm being investigated for sex trafficking.
sure. Only in Florida.
All right.
and in Knox County, Tennessee. That's what
Yeah.
it's for.
All right. Jody, did you read the comic for this one?
Yeah, I did. This is another one that's very straightforward adaptation. I think the comic is probably set a little further in the past. Everyone's dressed a little, Victorian-ish. But other than that, it's a pretty straightforward thing. They genuinely have no reason to be mean to this guy, just like in the segment here. They're just mean. Like if you look at the artwork, like they are drawn as these like haggard ghouls of people, like with their stretched out faces and angriness for no reason. And he looks like Geppetto from Pinocchio. Like he's just an old man that nothing happened. The only thing that's different that I will give credit for is at the end, when he finds the beating heart, the little poem that was written. There's no poem. It's just a beating heart wrapped up in paper, which I think, go the extra mile, write a poem as a zombie. I mean, zombies can do poetry too, I guess.
You know how much your fingers would hurt though if you're a zombie trying to write that out? Like
I know, like you breaking off pinkies the whole time. It's just hard stuff. But he took the time in the segment to actually write a poem before he just left the beating heart there. So yeah.
All right. I'll give some points for that.
Yeah.
All
A little
right.
extra effort.
Let's move on to Wish You Were Here. By far the best
All right.
Pink Floyd album.
Yes, agreed.
And then there's that.
All right, so Wish You Were Here. I actually remember this comic. I remember the comic from reading it as a kid.
Hmm.
There's a man named Ralph who is close to losing everything, and he's going into bankruptcy. And his wife notices that this statue that they bought in China has an English description written on the bottom, an inscription written on the bottom. Definitely not Chinese. They bought it in China, but it had English on it. That grants them 3 wishes. And so the wife just kind of casually says, I want to be rich. And her husband leaves. He gets in a car accident. There's a skull guy on a motorcycle. I don't know what he's about. He just kind of shows up and then disappears and never is mentioned again. But he leaves and goes out and he gets in a car wreck and he dies in that car wreck. And the husband's lawyer, I guess, comes over to tell her about the news, and she tells him about the wishes. And he says, well, you got to be really careful because there's a story called the Monkey's Paw. And this is very much Monkey's Paw story. He comes over and she makes another wish. She wishes for him to be exactly like he was right before he died in this car wreck. Well, bad news is he had a heart attack and died before the car wreck. And so wishing for him to be exactly like he was, still dead. All these undertakers come in and bring his coffin into the house. I'm not sure why. There's like 5 of them. They look like they're like part of a chorus line of undertakers, but they bring him in. He's dead still. And so she makes her last wish that he was still alive. He would stay alive. He'd be alive forever. Well, dead body has already been embalmed, which, let's go ahead and be a nitpicker here. If he was exactly like he was before he died, he was not embalmed. There were no undertakers in his car embalming him, but either way, he was embalmed, and so his dead body rises up. He's in intense pain because he's filled with formaldehyde, and she tries to kill him with a sword, attacks him, chops up pieces. All those pieces stay alive because she was careless with her wish, and she wished for him to be alive forever. And so even as he is chopped into pieces, he is still alive. I will point out one thing that always gets me with the 3 wishes type stories. The lawyer was freaking standing right there. It says whoever owns it gets 3 wishes. So all she had to do was go, hey, this statue's yours now. And he could go, I wish none of this happened. And it'd be over and everyone would be fine. But no one ever thinks about that. They think, oh no, now I'm stuck with this living corpse forever. So that's where we end, with a living corpse chopped into pieces and in intense agony and pain because the monkey's paw. You just don't mess with the monkey's paw.
Yeah, this is my favorite of the segments in this
It's a great story.
Because I know the term monkey paw, I'm sure, has some problematic implications, and the whole Chinese statue with English writing is problematic. But I just love those kind of stories, the 3 wishes, and like they always turn bad on you. I'm just kind of like a sucker for that kind of thing.
You ever watch the Wishmaster movie?
Actually, I've never seen one of those. I always know.
Oh man, Wishmaster's so good because it's just that. It's like that for the whole movie.
Well, my favorite is the Simpsons one parody of it. Homer orders a turkey, wishes for a turkey sandwich, but something on it. I forget what it is, but something's dry, and he freaks out.
And they did it in Looney Tunes as well, where Daffy Duck found the genie in the lamp and he disgraces him.
But I thought, at least in this one, you have sympathy for the wife who's just trying to, get over her grief of her dead husband. So at least there's a sympathetic character there you kind of felt for in the end. And then she keeps fucking it up more and more and more. And there's some good gore and some I thought some pretty good acting on that. That random motorcycle with that creepy ass skull mask, that was pretty badass. It's really random, especially cool. Especially in the movie as reserved as this. It was like a fresh, it was something fresh, like okay.
Right. I imagine someone saw like Psychomania. And was like,
100%.
And they're just adamant that there's going to be a biker on set wearing a skull mask. Like it's just.
No, I had the exact same thought. That is a Psychomania mask. And if you've never watched that movie, It's another very British movie, but it's British and involves motorcyclists and black magic. And at one point, a man rides out of his grave on a motorcycle. You got to watch
Actually they should have gotten those guys to direct this because that was way more than the vein of Tales from the Crypt than this was actually.
That was funny.
No, I just thought this was a fun episode. One really cool thing: the lawyer is played by Roy Dotrice.
Dotrice.
And man, he's had an amazing career. He only passed away a couple years ago.
Yeah.
He was-
Worked with Roy on an episode of Crypt.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Roy did the
Escape.
which we shot in Dover Castle
Oh, cool.
Oh, cool.
in England. That was the oh man. Oh man. Yes, nice man. It was one of those. Well, when we did the season in England, we got to work in locations that we would have killed to work in any other season. Gosh, the Dover Castle where we shot it is where they had the tunnels where Churchill sat during the war, and during the downtime, it was fun to wander through all. It's a museum now, and it was closed while we were working there, so we could wander through the whole place ourselves. I did anyway. It is remarkable to use as your movie set, your TV show set, someplace where history happened.
Yeah.
That's just ludicrous.
Yeah, I don't know if we're doing dad advice on this episode. I've only been in Europe one time when I went to Austria last year. But if you ever get a chance to go to someplace where really old stuff happened, please do. Please make that happen, because it is incredible to be in a place and go 1,200 years ago, this happened,
It's so surreal. As I said before, my company's based out of Regensburg, Germany, in Bavaria. And when you go there, there's a McDonald's. And behind the McDonald's are Roman walls that the Romans built. It's so just insane to see that architecture. And it's also a pre-war city that was never damaged during the war. I mean, they have an old building with a picture of David and Goliath on it because they never want to be part of Germany. They figured we're the trade stop. We're Bavaria. We're not Germany. And they always insist that the little guys fighting against Germany. But all that's pre-war and, so old. This is so unreal to see the architecture, and it's breathtaking. It takes you back. Like, it's hard to imagine. I'm standing on these walls and you can see where they have the archer cutouts for the archers. And they're, like 5 feet tall where they were actually aiming at because they're shorter. And just unreal to think I'm standing where a Roman archer was.
Yeah.
So long ago.
When I was a college student 1,000 years ago, I took my junior year in Paris, and I went to Vassar. And so Vassar assigned me, they had Vassar people all over the place. And so I was given a Vassar mom when I was in Paris, someone who had gone to Vassar and lived in Paris. And my Vassar mom was a woman named Joan Long, who was the CBS radio correspondent based in Paris. And Joan had an apartment in the Saint-Germain-des-Prés area, just between the Boulevard Saint-Germain-des-Prés, in a very studenty area, and the river. And her apartment had been continuously occupied by people since the year it was built in 1200.
Jeez.
So when you walked into her apartment, you knew that people had been living in that space for 700 years.
That's so cool.
That's insane.
At the time.
Love it.
Yeah.
Mind-boggling.
I've gone to Philly and gone to all the courthouses where George Washington had the Declaration of Independence, and that's only less than 300 years old. And it's so crazy to think, like you said, that place was around 500 years before that. Like unreal.
Yeah, I mean, I've been to Israel, and that's just mind-boggling just walking around those streets.
Agree. That's a breathtaking, breathtaking place.
It really is. Yeah.
Especially if you live on the west coast of America, which is only like less than 100 years.
Yes, our idea of old have nothing to do with each other.
If we have anything here in Las Vegas that's over 70 years old, that's unreal.
Yeah.
We have historic Boulder City which was like built in the 40s.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in Tennessee, the oldest stuff we have, there are some Native American sites, and that is very cool. I do enjoy visiting those. But outside of that, like, it's just white people from a couple hundred years ago.
I was gonna say you probably have some monuments there that probably shouldn't be standing.
Yeah, probably. Oh, well, there are some. There's some very famous ones in Tennessee. Very bad ones.
Yeah. So going back to Roy. Every time we get political, I try to bring it back.
Roy,
No. I only say bad.
old
Is
Roy.
like literally, there is a statue that's just insane, like ridiculous, crazy eyes. I don't know who made it, but they were drawing like a kindergartner, and they made a statue.
So yeah, Roy was in Amadeus. He was in Cheech and Chong's Coruscant's Brothers. He was the Beauty and the Beast TV show. He was in Earth 2, Babylon 5, Tales from the Crypt. He did the original audiobooks for Game of Thrones. He was in Hellboy 2, and he did a role in the Game of Thrones TV show.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, he died like in his mid-90s. So I mean, big bucket of win for that guy. he had, compared to most people on this, he had a huge amount of longevity. I did the comic for this one, and it is pretty much the same. They cut down on the lawyer character a little bit in the comic, or at least the lawyer's a smaller role. But the really crazy thing is at the end where Ralph comes back to life, you get to hear him kind of describing, and he's got these really ghastly images of his face in agony. And in the movie, they have the lawyer come in and say, "You idiot, he's been embalmed," but here he's talking about it in the first person. He's describing it in the comic. It's really, really creepy and intense.
Yeah, that's one thing I wanted to say during Mondo's, but I forgot. I don't mention it every time it happens because it happens a lot in the comics, but a lot of EC comics were done in the first person. And so they put you in the shoes of the character, and that really puts some immediacy in there, and some, when something horrible is happening in an AC comic, probably 75% of the time you're hearing it from the narrator's perspective.
All right, let's move on to our final segment, Blind Alleys.
Okay, so this is probably my favorite of them all. A man named Major William Rogers becomes the new director of a home for the blind, and he gets rich off the suffering of the people he is in charge of. He cuts the heat, he cuts the blankets, he cuts the food, all of this stuff to be efficient and British as possible. And so he cuts out everything and makes these people live in absolute misery while he lives in relative luxury. He gets good food. He has a nice office with a lot of good stuff in it. They're starving. He has huge meals. One man dies in his bed, probably because of hypothermia in the cold room where he's in. And so the blind men band together and lure his German Shepherd into the basement and lock him in a room. And then they take the major and lead him down the stairs and put him in a different room in the basement where he can hear his dog barking. While he's in there for 2 days without food, and the dog is without food as well, the men start picking up wood from around the area. They take the rest of the staff captive, and they build kind of a maze that the major has to go through. When he's released 2 days later, he walks out, and there's these narrow corridors that he has to kind of wind his way through. And one of them is full of razor blades attached to the wall. And it's very narrow, and he has to kind of turn sideways and go through all the razor blades. And then he realizes that the very last room is the room where his dog has been this entire time, unfed for multiple days. And his dog is ravenously hungry. So they open the door. The dog lunges at him. He runs back to the razor hall to try to get away. But ultimately, his dog attacks and eats the major. And maybe this was my favorite just because we finally get a little nasty in here after a Tales from the Crypt movie that has been pretty tame. Razor blades on the wall and a dog eating a man. that's kind of my jam. I'm enjoying this. This is good stuff. But yeah, no, this was a cool story. But yeah, that something about those razor blades on the wall. Maybe it's because I've started shaving my head with like like a safety razor, like an old style safety razor that has real razor blades. Razor blades are freaking scary. Like they're sharp as hell.
Oh man, yeah,
And
yeah.
the idea of them being like lining the skinny walls, you're just getting cut the whole time you're going through them, and then going through that same area with a dog attacking you. That's nasty. That's Tales from the Crypt. That's what I'm wanting in Tales from the Crypt.
Mondo, what'd you think?
Oh, same. This is my favorite of all the episodes, and I do love the very end when he gets through. My first thought is these razor blades are sticking pretty far out of the wall. You could probably just snap them all off.
Yeah,
And
I don't really know how they were attached. They were kind of
they
floating.
glued in there. But he walks out of it. I love the last scene though when the lights go out.
Yeah.
That's probably my favorite scene in the entire movie, because there's that real feeling of dread when you hear the dog just snarling and you just know that shit went down. And also the one blind man who they kind of immediately pin as being I guess the protagonist, or being the one looking out for the rest of them. When he's like, "Let me get you a blanket," he searches the cabinets, the blanket. I was like, that's kind of heartbreaking. And you see the blind people, and they're hovering around the radiator just trying to get some warmth. And then he goes and he asks the headmaster, like, "Can we get some heat or some more blankets?" He goes, "Nope, sorry, not in the budget this month." It's like, what a piece of shit. So I was happy, like Jody said, I was happy to see some nastiness. And it's one of those things where, and I've mentioned this before in horror movies, when you see someone get their lungs ripped out or something crazy like that, you can relate to it in a little bit, but never 100%. But everyone has cut themselves in their lifetime, and you can imagine how that would feel running through that corridor of razor blades. It would not be pleasant. So this is definitely my favorite segment of the entire movie.
I said earlier in the Poetic Justice segment that was the most punchable character. I think the guy in charge of the facility here may be more punchable, because he is truly a piece of shit. He's just,
at least for him, it wasn't personal. Where the other guy was
it's not. Well, I think that it makes it even worse, though. I don't know. Maybe it's growing up in the world that we live in. The guy who's like, all you people who are poor and trying to get by, and I could help you. Fuck all y'all.
And
like that guy, I want something terrible to happen to him.
Not even just poor, they're blind and they need
Yeah.
help.
They
Like,
rely on this dude, and he is just the biggest piece of crap. I want something bad to happen, and it finally
and
did.
then when the guy's pleading, like, we need help, and he's like, nah, not in the budget. Money over life, right? Like, it's fuck. It's bad.
Al, what'd you think?
We did this episode. It's called Revenge is the Nuts. Is our version. We've got Anthony Zerbe is the villain, Terry Polo, and Isaac Hayes is one of the blind people. And yes, this of all the episodes in the feature film, this gets closest to the mark, because there's just something diabolically funny about blind people doing what they did. And so you can't, they couldn't strip out the fun of the idea of blind people having the time to build something with the specific dimensions to cause this person the most amount of physical pain.
We go jigsaw on them.
Yeah. So there's it automatically, they can't escape the wicked fun of the idea. And so, of everything in the movie, this one, I think this is the best sequence of them all. It's funny, the lead blind guy, Patrick McGee, he's very funny. He can be a really good actor. He can be a really poor actor. I think he's very poor in this movie. His idea of a crazy person is dial it back 50%, dude. Really, you're acting too crazy. He does the same thing in Clockwork Orange. Patrick McGee is the
writer, I
He's the
think.
guy who's Alex breaks into his house towards the beginning
Oh.
and rapes the wife,
Mhm.
and to singing in the rain.
Mhm.
Patrick McGee is the guy, and towards the end of the movie, when Alex revisits the house, Patrick drives him to try to commit suicide, but Patrick overacts terribly, terribly in Clockwork Orange, which is why I think Kubrick wanted him, because he would, Kubrick tended to hire actors, and I don't think he minded their flaws as actors. Anyway, that's a whole other conversation. But Patrick McGee is he's the only weak thing in the whole segment, just because he doesn't know how to play crazy.
Well, devil's
He-
advocate, maybe him going over the top compared to how reserved all the other actors are.
Yeah,
Maybe it just seems that much more over the top because everyone else is holding back so much.
It's funny. The only movie that I think I can think of Patrick McGee doing, it was another Kubrick, because he was, Kubrick used him all the time. He is very good in Barry Lyndon. He doesn't have he's not playing crazy, and you completely forget that it's Patrick McGee, because he doesn't play crazy, and so he's good. Every time they ask him to play crazy, oh boy.
Yeah, I think you're right, though. This story is the most Tales from the Cryptish of them all, just because of the elaborateness of what they do. They construct this whole tunnel system with razors and a dog to eat him at the end. Like that's Tales from. I mean, I remember one famous Tales from the Crypt story that ends with them playing baseball with like all these human body parts. Like it's this elaborate thing that you've had to do to make this happen, and so you can't tone down that story too much without completely changing it. And so there's a little bit more Tales from the Crypt in this story than any of the other stories.
The TV show succeeded because we played the irony literally. We didn't play the morality tale that as literally. Here they played the morality tale literally, and not the irony.
Sure.
And so we always whatever I was saying.
All right. Jody or Mondo, I forget. I've lost track of who did what.
I got the comic on this one.
All right.
So the comic is pretty similar, but there's like this one panel in here where they talk about how he gets off on playing tricks on the blind people. Like he removes the banister for the stairs and he's laughing as they fall down the stairs.
Oh, God.
And then he just rearranges the furniture. So they're tripping over the furniture and he's laughing. And another one, he set up the classic prank of the water bucket with a rope tied to the door. So they open the door and the water comes down and falls on them. He's just a sadistic bastard that enjoys torturing these poor homeless people. The only real difference towards the end is when you see like the design of the maze they make for him with the razor blades, is it looks a lot wider, not so narrow and not so claustrophobic, but still stays pretty close to comic aside from that. Another interesting thing about this, if you think about it, with the razor blades weren't designed to kill him. They're designed to cause pain. And also in the dark, if he's bleeding, what can the dog smell?
Yeah.
And the dog in this one, it actually looks more like an American pit bull than a German Shepherd, which pit bulls are nice dogs if you just treat them right and teach them right. They're great dogs. I had a pit bull. He's a sweetheart. But that was interesting too. But overall, pretty close to comic, aside from in the movie. Again, like much to Al's point, in the movie, it was there's no like over the top stuff he was doing to the homeless people, like, or the homeless, but the blind people, like it was in the comic, where he's like making them trip over stuff for his own amusement. It was just straight, pretty much sadism. Like, me making $1 is more important than your health. Where in this one, in the comic, he truly enjoyed making these poor blind people's lives hell.
Yeah, and in the episode, in the segment, this was just capitalism. Like, it's just capitalism of let's get as much money as we can and screw these folks over if it happens. he wasn't necessarily sadistic, but I somehow almost think it's worse to just be so unconcerned with people for the sake of money.
No, well, they bring up the comic too, where he's like, "This is an awesome gig. They all have to pay to live here, and I don't really have to pay any money to keep them alive." So, it's definitely some capitalism there too. But as add on top of that, he's like, it's Wednesday. We're gonna make some blind people trip. Like it's pretty, and not a fun trip.
Yeah.
A physical trip. So it's yeah, I think he's a little bit nastier in the comic, but I get you because he's not as, I don't know, like it's, the character's a little more wackier in the comic, but that sadistic streak combined with the capitalist streak, it's not good.
This was another character I was waiting for something bad to happen, and something genuinely bad happened, and I enjoyed it much more than what happened to the other guy.
No one's gonna miss that guy.
No.
Screw him.
Yeah. All right, Jody, why don't you finish us off with the end of the wraparound?
Okay, we wrap it up with the big reveal that this was not actually warnings of what could happen if they did these things. They already did all these things. All this stuff had already happened. This was actually what had happened to the 5 people who were in this place. And they were paying their punishment because they were unrepentant for what they had done. And they are in hell. A door opens up and one of the men, I think maybe the guy from this last story, walks through. And you see him do the like green screen fall of kind of wave his arms around and falls into flames. And then the other 4 just kind of get up and start walking towards that door themselves. And the Crypt Keeper, I don't know why they do that.
Why doesn't anyone resist?
Yeah, they don't resist.
Wait, I'm not going there.
And then we end with the Crypt Keeper going, and now who's next? And then he turns and faces the camera. Perhaps you. And that's it. It fades to black at that point. So that's, I guess, also the closest we get to a Crypt Keeper is addressing the audience directly there. The Crypt Keeper we all know and love. Little jokiness. Finally, a little jokiness.
He actually violates the fourth wall at the very last second.
Yeah, it's like they've completely fundamentally misunderstood that character and thought they give us like one tiny bone and then make up for it. Like,
right. He's been very serious until the very, very last second. You get a little bit of that camping, just a touch.
It makes a little bit of sense with the comics because he's talking to the character and the character's actually in the room with him. So I get what they did, although maybe not great.
Yeah. It's just so serious. It's just as the Joker said, why so serious?
Oh,
have some fun here.
I won't lie. It took me 3 sittings to get through everything just because I was at a 3-day metal fest and I was tired and I was like, I cannot watch this for an hour and a half with these stupid commercials. So I watched a couple, then I watched the last one today. So it did help breaking it up, to be honest with you. So I think I might have enjoyed it a little bit more because I broke it up.
One thing that not threw me, but I was confusing was, okay, so the premise is that they think that they're going to be shown what's going to happen, except at the very beginning when they're walking through the catacombs, the Joan Collins character says, "Oh, I dropped my brooch," and someone picks it up. So they establish that she has the brooch, and then in her segment, she opens one of her Christmas presents, and it's the brooch. So she already has the brooch. So her story had to have already happened.
Mm-hmm.
But she doesn't know, so it's fine. It doesn't. But we know, but she doesn't. That's okay.
Yeah, well, it seemed like I'm trying to figure out whether they're trying to tell us that they're being deceived or they expect it to be a twist for us. I was just a little confused by that because it's supposed to be the ending comes off as, oh, these aren't foretellings, they're reminders.
Well, maybe think of it as they don't remember their deaths, but she got the brooch before her death, so she remembered that. She didn't remember the trauma.
No, yeah. Now I get for them. I'm trying to figure out what are they trying to get us to think,
right?
And I feel like they give us a huge clue that, like,
I think you're overthinking. I think all they want you to think is when you saw that brooch appear, you're like, oh, it's the brooch. I think that was it.
Yeah,
I didn't pay enough attention. I didn't notice the brooch.
Me either. So it might have been a cool little filmmaker thing where they thought maybe you guys remember this, and Jason was the only smart enough one out of the 3 of us to.
I was just paying too much attention to Joan Collins.
Yeah,
that's neither here nor there.
Who can blame you?
Yeah. All right. Any final thoughts before we do our reading?
I mean, I think overall, again, as an Amicus anthology, which I do enjoy. They're very British. There is a time and place for serious British horror. I like the BBC did a thing of ghost stories for Christmas, and I like that. That's a tradition in England to tell ghost stories at Christmas. But I like those. They're very serious, very dry, and sometimes they can be exactly what you want. Now, if I was looking for Tales from the Crypt out of this, I would have been disappointed. But as far as approaching this just as a British anthology movie, I think it's worth watching. But don't expect anything like what you get from the Tales from the Crypt series. Not even close.
Okay.
Like the tone of Amicus Monster Club would have fit way better with modern Tales.
Yeah, that one's more playful. That one's pretty playful, actually.
All right, let's do our ratings. Al, you're our guest, so you get to go first. So we do our ratings 0 to 5, 0 being the worst, 5 being the best. You can do half points. And this is your personal rating, so it's not, on some grander scale. So for you, what do you rate this?
Gosh, yeah, it gets a 1.
Oh, harsh. I dig it.
Oh, gosh. Well made, but it doesn't understand the source material. And it betrays the source material because it doesn't understand it. It's not a good adaptation. And it's like bad Shakespeare.
Ooh.
I mean, I think of any of us, if anyone has an idea of what it's like to take the source material and do it right, Al would know. So
Yeah, guys, how did you fuck this? Oh, that's right. You're English. That's how you fucked this up.
To all our English listeners out there.
But not
there is
because you're
nothing
English,
wrong with being British.
but just because you're not Jews from Brooklyn, you didn't understand that something essential of what makes that material work.
They misunderstood the assignment.
Yeah.
All right, Jody.
All right. So again, I'm kind of judging this more on the Amicus anthology level. I'm gonna go as an Amicus anthology for a 3 out of 5 on this one. It's a decent. There's some fun moments. I did like that last story quite a bit. I'm looking forward now that I know that it was made in the TV show to see it done right.
Yeah.
But I'm actually really looking forward to that episode now.
Season 6.
Let me see.
Season
I don't know that we did that episode right. Hold on, wait a minute. Okay.
We're gonna put Al to the test.
Yeah, Jonas McCord, God, yeah, that was one of those favors, wasn't it? Yeah, it was. Yeah, that was a favor director. Okay.
Well, okay, at the very least, to see it done by somebody who understands what Tales from the Crypt is.
Somewhat EC style.
Some of the people do, at least.
Mondo.
All right. So yeah, if I had to rate it in the
on your level.
Yeah, if I had to rate it in the realm of Tales from the Crypt, it's not getting very high at all because it wasn't the Tales from the Crypt I love. But I'm with Jody on this one. As an Amicus anthology, I'd give it a 3. I'd say don't, if you're expecting Tales from the Crypt, what we've been talking about now for a year, you're not going to get it. It's completely different. Like Al said, it's very British, very, very tonally serious, and not necessarily what I would want out of Tales from the Crypt. But as an anthology, as a horror anthology, if you didn't know the original source material, I think somewhere between a 2.5 and a 3. So if I have to guess, I'm going to go a little bit higher and say 3.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, the fact that it has the Tales from the Crypt name on it, I can't divorce that from the material itself, even though it is Amicus.
I respect that. Yeah, totally respect.
So I'm going with a 2. There's definitely some highlights, but on average, it just doesn't really work with what I'm looking for from a Tales from the Crypt property.
100%. Get it.
I do think it's interesting that the first and probably the last segments are probably the strongest. Maybe the last 2 are probably the strongest. But when you end on a high note, it's funny because it gives you a better taste in your mouth at the end of the day, as opposed to like when we've all seen those anthologies where it's like strong, ooh, terrible, and then you kind of dismiss the whole movie because it's it ended on a terrible note, and this at least ended on the best note possible. So I think that helps a little bit for me.
Yeah, ordering, and when you're doing an anthology, the order in which you present them is very, very key.
Yeah, like, I'll be honest, it went in the reverse order, and I was trying to watch that last episode today after 12 hours of a metal concert and getting no sleep and going to work all day. I'd probably be just very salty right now.
All right, well, that wraps up our episode review. Let's move on to our song of the day.
Oh, okay. I thought we were doing trivia, but
Or is it trivia first? No, song of the day is first.
No, song of the
We
day
can
is
switch
first.
if you want. It's a special
no,
episode.
it's fine. I'm tired. I'm tired. It's okay. I have a really short and easy one today. So this past weekend was Psycho Fest Las Vegas, which is 3 days of just metal fest, and I'm too old for that shit. Like, I'm really feeling it today after spending 12 hours a day at the Resorts World Las Vegas. But I do find it funny that people were there who definitely took their family on a Las Vegas vacation and are at this casino where there's metal bands playing everywhere, and all you can hear is metal bands playing and all these crusty metal looking motherfuckers walking around. There's something pretty endearing about that. But I had a blast. And the headliners last night were Merciful Fate from Copenhagen, Denmark. King Diamond's been around, so I've talked about him before.
Yeah, those are good ones.
Yeah, Merciful Fate and King Diamond, two separate bands. King Diamond is a frontman of Merciful Fate. When they want to go more commercial, he said, "Fuck you, I want to go more Satan," and started King Diamond instead. And then they reunited. And this is their first tour, this first show in America in like 25 years.
Oh wow!
Playing the Merciful Fate material, great stage show, fun crowd, everyone's having a good time. So my song of the day is me from Merciful Fate, off of God, I can't even think of which record it was off right now. It was either off Melissa or Don't Break the Oath. I think it was off Don't Break the Oath. It's called A Dangerous Meeting, because this whole anthology is about a dangerous meeting with the Crypt Keeper.
Good one. That's from Dangerous Meeting, by the way.
That is not from Dangerous Meeting. That's the name of the song.
I mean, no, sorry. I had the album a second ago.
I did this once before. I tried to do some Googling and check Mondo, and I was wrong.
Oh no,
better.
sorry. There's a
It's from Don't Break the Oath.
compilation. There's a
It's from
compilation called Dangerous Meeting.
Yeah, it's from well, yeah. I mean, there's all kinds of like bootlegs and whatever, but it's from Don't Break the Oath. I can tell because I googled a little thumbnail is a cover of Don't Break the Oath.
There you go.
Which is kind of crazy because like that came out during the whole Satanic Panic era. And instead of him saying, let's take a step back and be more rock and roll, he goes, no, let's just get in on the Satanic Panic. Which I respect.
I love Melissa, though. That's a great album.
The whole record. That's a fantastic. He played the title track off that, so that's cool.
All right, Jody, give us some trivia.
All right, so I'm just going with some IMDb trivia here. I already mentioned one that this was Peter Cushing as Peter Cushing. But here's just a few things that I found that I thought were interesting. Stephen King and George Romero considered remaking this movie together, but they ended up making Creepshow instead. Very similar type movie, except for, again, they got the tone down.
Yeah.
Robert Zemeckis said this is his favorite movie to watch on Halloween, since it was released as a young person. And of course, obviously, he was one of the producers of the Tales from the Crypt show. So I feel like this is one of these movies that he watched, he got something out of it, and then said, I can do it better. And
he did.
Okay, and he did.
Yeah.
When I saw the look on Al's face, I'm like, maybe that trivia is not accurate.
Again, IMDb, you take everything with a grain of salt.
That's right. Anyone could do it. But according to IMDb, it says that.
I would question only because having talked to Bob about film, I don't know. I don't know about that.
You can go call him.
Sure. If it sells something, sure, whatever.
It's a good story anyway, right? All of the Crypt Keeper segments were filmed in a day, so we had our serious Crypt Keeper there for a day on set, and he got to do all of his stuff and then move on with his life.
And they shot them all one way. And if you look at you could see how they did that. They shot him all in the master, then they shot him at least one size. They got him at least there. So, and then when they shot the other side, the other actors, it was never with him. There might have been one or two shots across him, but it could have been anyone sitting in it was from behind. And so really it didn't have to be Ralph Richardson sitting in the wardrobe. Yeah, they hired him for one day. He was
Yeah.
their expensive hire.
And then the last one here, the Mansion in the Wish You Were Here segment. That's the Monkey's Paw one. Is the same house in London that they did The Omen in. It was Gregory Peck and Lee Remick's house in The Omen. So we get some more horror connections to this exact same house.
Directed by Richard Donner.
Yeah,
That's
right.
My boss.
All right. Mono, you can edit this part out, but do we want to do dad advice or we just want to cut it? What do we think?
Your guys' call.
Hmm?
Your call.
It's
Maybe back to school advice.
Hey, back to school. How old is everyone's kids here? Is everyone going back to school? Kids back to school?
My kid will be 20 in December, so
21. I've got she just went back to school for her senior year at UC Davis. So that's my last one in school.
Mine took a semester off just because life stuff happened, and I was like, just take a semester off, get your head straight, and then go back.
Yeah, I range from 6 to 16, so we're right in the middle of school right now.
If you haven't heard,
Is your school ever end?
Jody has like Jody could just have a homeschool class at his house and have that, and would still be over the student teacher limit somehow. What do you 6 Jody?
6, yeah.
6 kids.
There's a bunch of us. We're taking over.
Hey.
Yeah, mine start back next week. So do we want to talk about that? Or we just want to end the episode?
I mean, if you have any tips for kids going back to school and parents dealing with it, like, I'll just say it's okay. Like, just let your kids fly like Freebird.
All right, here, I'll dive something in real quick. Okay, so for dad advice, a lot of kids are either going back to school or have gone back to school. Mine go back next week, but we're doing all the shopping and everything. Jody, your kids are back?
Yeah, we're already back. We get to set our own schedule, but yeah, we're already back.
And Alan, I think you said you're taking your youngest is going back to school for a senior year.
She just went back up over the weekend. She's back.
Well,
yeah, so
happy as can be. Yeah,
what is
that's where she belongs.
What is she majoring
in? English and feminist studies.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
So I
She's
thought it'd be good for our listeners, if you have any back to school advice, to send it to us, and we'll put out a call on Twitter, and we can discuss that further in our next episode.
That sounds great.
Real fast for new parents out there who not new parents, but your kids are going to school for the first time. It's rough until you get to like week 2, and then as you have those times where it's just quiet in your house, worth it.
See, I've been the opposite, where the first 2 weeks I'm like, oh, it's quiet, I love it, I get to do whatever I want, while I'm working from home. And then after about 2 weeks, I'm like, okay, it's too quiet, I'm going a little stir crazy here, me and the dog are becoming a little too close.
Really? Boy.
Well, if
when both my kids were away at school and we thought, God, we've got the house to ourselves, and then my son graduated and moved back into our house. That was a tragedy.
Well, if you're doing like me and avoiding the Tennessee school systems, then you never have a moment of quiet in your life because you homeschool your kids and they're always here. So
when you homeschool, do you have like a special room for that, or do you have like
we are
use the kitchen?
We are loosey goosey. We use the kitchen. We use my office. I don't work a lot during the day. I work at night so that they can have my computer available. And it's one of those make it work kind of situations. We go all over. People do things where works best for them. That's part of the reason why we do what we do. Is I have a kid that's a night owl, and so he likes to do a lot of his stuff at night, like I do, and that's cool. He gets to do it at night when he's at his most functional. The ones that want to wake up early and do stuff early in the morning, awesome. I sleep through it all, and my wife helps them out because she's a morning person too. So, the adaptability of it all is really nice.
And I'll actually, I'll plug that really big. It's really lean into how your children learn. your kid doesn't like to write out things, sometimes some kids have, um, I don't want to say disabilities, but conditions where, writing is just not conductive for them. Have them type it, try to
everyone
figure
has.
out how to set your kid up for success and being adaptable.
Absolutely.
I mean, when we were young, we all learned about the different learning styles, and that stuff still stays true today. Like I was always an audible learner. I was never a note taker. If I take notes, I'm going to forget everything you're telling me because I'm more focused on taking notes. So I didn't take notes. I teachers yell at me like, you're not taking notes. And I'm like, just trust me, it's cool.
I'm listening, man.
Yeah, and then I passed that test. They never give me shit again. Like,
Yeah.
So I think it's cool. I think it's, like you said, it's important to embrace how your kids learn, and don't give them shit if they don't learn like you do, because everybody's just different. Like,
Jody, we did have a question from someone DM us on Instagram about, have you ever used horror themes to help your kids learn?
I don't know that I've ever used it in learning.
Horror.
They've definitely been introduced. The ones that want it. We've talked about this before. The ones that are interested, we have found ways to spend some time together and bond as a family over horror. I just watched the original Orphan for the first time, and I really wish I didn't know the twist. If somebody is listening to this and somehow doesn't know the twist, I'm not going to reveal it. But I cannot wait to watch this with my kids who want to watch because they don't know the twist. And I can't wait to watch it with them and see their response to it because that's just fun. It's fun watching a movie and knowing something cool's coming up and getting to watch your kids experience that moment.
Jody's like, I don't use horror to teach them, but if they want to leave the house, they have to go through a maze lined with razor blades.
I'm thinking like, remember those old problems where like the dog can't be with the cat and they have to get across the river.
Sure.
I'm thinking like, okay, so Jason and Freddie can't be in the boat at the same time, but Jason and Michael can be, and Freddie and the Crypt Keeper can be. So what order?
You got to take Freddie across, then come back, get the Crypt Keeper, then you got to take the first guy back. Oh my God,
I thought the Crypt Keeper is be chill with everybody though.
Yeah, he just be cracking jokes.
What are you gonna do? Cut his head off? He's gonna make some joke about how you cut his head off, and Jason's not gonna understand it. Freddie will probably get a kick out of it. So,
all right.
On a completely unrelated note for horror things in the family, I just found out the other day that Lowe's has horror decorations that are like licensed characters now.
Oh shit!
Oh, nice.
Like you can get string lights that are all like little hockey masks. And man, I gotta get to Lowe's because I have a bunch of little hockey mask string lights hanging around my house.
I think this is the year.
Wow.
I think this is the
Hey,
year.
these are wonderful times we live in.
It absolutely is.
I think this is the year that I get the 12-foot skeleton.
Yes.
I have one friend who has it, and I'm envious of him every day.
My selling point to my wife loves horror, so it's fine. It's no big deal there. Is that we just decorate them for every holiday. Like for Christmas, Santa hat, bam, done. Now as a Christmas decoration, put some lights on them. Like I think this is a great idea. St. Patrick's Day, bam, a hat and a clover, right? Like done, easy. And we can have him out year round. I don't have to worry about storing him. That's for quitters.
I 100% agree. And anyone who's watching us on video sees my skeletons in the background that have been there for about 2 years solid. Those are Halloween decorations.
Except for the one still doing that ball kick right now, like kicking him right.
I love it.
Good form too. Like that leg straight. Did you have your daughter critique the form? Make sure the form was straight.
I've seen them enough to do it myself. We got it.
All right. I think that wraps up another episode. Alan, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, guys. It was a pleasure to sit in with you. It really was.
All right. Where can people find you?
They can find me. I wish they would please tell me and let me know where I am. Well, of course, you can always find me at How Not to Make a Movie podcast. You can find me .com. You can also find me at howtolivebullshitfree.com. That's my main blog.
All right. And your Twitter is always a hoot. What is your Twitter handle?
I'm AL Katz on Twitter, and I don't know the rest. I'm bringing that online slowly.
All right. One thing at a time. That's fine. All right. Well, next week we will be kicking off season 5 of Tales from the Crypt with Death of Some Salesman.
Gosh.
It's gonna be a big one
for that one.
That's a good episode.
I seen Jody fist pump exactly one time, and that was it.
that's a particularly near and dear episode. The just working with Tim was such a pleasure. Guys, I could tell you stories.
Yeah, hopefully maybe we'll hear some stories. All right, we'd appreciate it. Oh, we appreciate everyone for listening. We'd really appreciate it if everyone could give us a rating, review on iTunes, a rating on Spotify, and check out our Patreon for bonus content. With that, we thank you for listening to Dads from the Crypt.
Adios to
Good night,
everyone.
everybody.
Follow Dads from the Crypt on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, or I will follow you to the grave. No, seriously, you really should watch. But be careful what you ask for. You may get it.